Welcome to Turning Hard Times to Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I am again here in the borough of Queens in New York City. It is the 6th day of December 2022. Before I talk more about today's show, let me remind you that I am the editor of Jay Taylor's Gold, Energy, and Tech Stocks. That's a newsletter, a weekly newsletter, and a monthly letter that's focused primarily on junior gold and silver exploration stocks, as well as market commentary that I provide there as well. Go to miningstocks.com to sign up for that letter. And let me remind you that gold shares usually do better during recessions and depressions. That may come as a surprise to many of you, but they do. And gold itself is negatively, or at least has a very low correlation with the equity market, with the bond markets too, in some cases. And so when we're in a recession, a lot of times the cost of getting gold and silver out of the ground declines relative to the cost or to the price of the metal that's being mined. And so the profit margins generally are stronger during bad times in the economy. So just keep that in mind as we head into 2023, where most people believe, most financial analysts anyway, believe we're likely to have a recession of some magnitude. How deep it will be remains to be seen. But with regard to the mining companies, the 1930s were very, very good to gold mining companies. As in 2000, 2008, 2009, that crisis, the financial crisis, was also a time when gold miners did exceptionally well. We also like to plug Chen Lin's letter, What is Chen Buying, What is Chen Selling? ChenPicks.com is the place to go for that, especially if you're interested in the biotechs and the mining sector as well. And also Michael Oliver, Oliver MSA. Michael will be with me to talk about his latest take on the markets after our first commercial break. He'll be with me. I do want to thank all of you for listening to this show, making it one of the more popular shows in the Voice America Business Channel. Also like to invite you to keep your questions and comments, sending them along whenever you have any thoughts about our show. We'd love to hear from you. Questions for Taylor@gmail.com. Questions, the number for Taylor@gmail.com. As I noted a couple of weeks ago, there will be some changes in this show in the near future. And to keep up with those changes as they take place, be sure to request to be put on our mailing list at questionsfortaylor@gmail.com. You can go to questionsfortaylor@gmail.com to request to be put on our mailing list. And you can also track the progress that we're making and the changes that will be taking place at jtaylormedia.com. It's my website, jaytaylormedia.com, where you will also be kept abreast. And I will, of course, be doing some tweeting on Twitter as the time nears. I do anyway on a regular basis, but as the time nears for some changes, I will let you know there as well. We do want to thank our sponsors for making this show economically viable. Our sponsors for today: Irving Resources, Novo Resources, Gold Bull Resources, El Oro Resources, and Timberline Resources. I've titled today's show, America's Past and America's Future. Jeff Deist and Michael Oliver return this week. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And those were the words of the Declaration of Independence as penned by America's founding fathers back in July 4th, 1776. Holding a common belief that each individual is a unique person created by God, and having that in common was a unifying idea that helped drive the colonists to risk their lives to overthrow the tyrannical King of England, King George III. Having witnessed firsthand the tyranny of King George, the American founders understood that governments themselves can become the biggest threat to take away our God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that was part of the reason for the Second Amendment being written into the Constitution. And so our founders set in place not a democracy, which if unchecked becomes a mobocracy, but they set in place a democratic republic comprised of three branches of government, not one dictatorship, but three branches of government to guard each other branch from becoming so powerful that it would deny citizens their God-given rights, most basic of which are the rights of free speech, religion, and self-defense, as well as the right of free association, to own property, and many other rights which until recently had not been challenged, at least not significantly challenged in America. But now there is a growing chorus of people who seek to give power to a ruling class that are threatening to remove those rights that we have taken for granted for so much time over the years. In addition to the three equal branches of government, some of the other safeguards against tyranny by the majority to protect the life and liberty of a minority that were given to us by our founding fathers. We have an electoral college, vote for president and vice president. We have 2 senators from each state, no matter the population of those states. And we have representative government based on the population. The founding fathers also understood that sound money and free markets are essential to domestic peace and economic prosperity. Well, now, 247 years later, a growing number of Americans seem to have been taught to think that a powerful executive branch and even more powerful administrative state is preferable because, well, dictators can get things done more efficiently. A growing number of Americans appear not to understand or appreciate the link between the freedom willed to us by our founding fathers and economic prosperity that inevitably follows. Well, Jeff Deist, who worked as Ron Paul's chief of staff when Dr. Paul was in Congress and when he was running for president, will be with me in the second half of today's show to discuss how America has changed from the freest country in the world towards, in a very rapid pace, moving back towards a similar kind of a tyranny that our revolution, that our founding fathers revolted against back in 1776. Well, hopefully Jeff will have some advice, not only in explaining the past and looking to the future, but how we might best navigate our lives in the future, depending on how things are going to go. According to Jeff, we'll have to see what he has to say about that. I think Jeff and the Mises Institute is doing what they can in their way to try to help retain our freedoms, our liberties, the right to property, the right to be free to conduct ourselves in business, to worship, and all the rights that I just talked about. The Mises Institute is certainly doing what it can, and so we'll hear what Jeff has to say about that. We do have to go to break now, but Michael Oliver will be with me when we come back, and I know you're going to want to hear what Michael has to say on a day when the markets are down pretty hard. I'm looking at the NASDAQ is down over 2%. The S&P down 1.7%, and the Dow is down 1.3%. Bond markets are a little bit stronger, I think. I think the interest rates were down a smidgen earlier today. But for sure, these are very, very, I think, very uncertain times in the markets and politically and in many other ways. Michael will have a lot to say about all of that when we come back.